Hi, my name is Maria Van Vikelis from The Conscious CEO, and welcome to another episode of the Think Tank. I have the lovely Evelyn Szumski with me, who I'll be interviewing today. Just a little bit about Evelyn. Evelyn is actually the Managing Director of Leading Training Solutions, a company offering training in leadership, employee engagement, emotional intelligence, business coaching, and personal development, specialising in evidence-based techniques that deliver results. Evelyn is in business management and is qualified and has extensive leadership experience. She helps business owners identify their goals, understand and formalize them, and strategize the implementation of achieving these goals in simple, easy to manage steps over allocated timeframes. Evelyn also practices neuro-based coaching, which is ICF credential at PCC level, an accredited EQ profiler, and has been a coach for the Richard Branson Center for Leadership and provides executive coaching for companies such as Facebook and Salesforce, to name a few, and has recently been certified as a senior habit change practitioner and conscious business coach. Today we'll be talking about how to actually sharpen your emotional intelligence for better habits. Welcome to the show, Evelyn.
Hey, hi Maria, I'm pleased to be here.
So lovely to have you here, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you a bit more.
Yeah, great. I'm so excited. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself if I haven't already covered it.
Look, I'm a tech geek, right? I love tech stuff, and what I found actually was I worked for Telstra for many years, and I love tech. But when I left there, what I found was the brain. And I just thought, you know what, this is the most tech savvy thing that you could ever learn. And it's so fascinating, so interesting, and it's so relatable to anything that's techie, right? Like a computer or an app, or, you know, they're the good analogies that people use now for the brain, is like the different apps you plug in, and you know, what operating platform you're on, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's got a correlation there. So I really love it. That's my passion. And of course, helping people, you know, make the best use of that as well.
Beautiful. And I think we underestimate the actual capabilities of what the mind can be, and really like deep diving even further into it is like going down a rabbit hole, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And what we don't realize is how much power we actually have ourselves. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, our culture and our lifestyles and the media and the money-making machines take a lot of power away from us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And especially like in times such as now, getting that power back, I think, is definitely essential in order to continue to move forward in an empowered state, right?
Oh, absolutely. And at the moment, because there's so much uncertainty and there's so much stuff going on, and inundated by, you know, stuff from the media and all the negative stuff and all of that. Oh, yeah, absolutely need to have that control. Yeah.
Beautiful. So tell me, Evelyn, why are habits so important in keeping a person really sharp?
Well, you know what? 80% of what we do is habitual. Can you believe that? Like 80% of what we do is automatic stuff that we've relegated to our subroutines, you know, in our brain, that we don't even realize we're doing. So, you know, you sort of, it's like being on autopilot. So understanding your habits and understanding how they fit into your life is really key to helping you succeed, really, because you can, as we said before, you have control. Once you understand the methodology behind habit change and habit intervention, you can actually change your habits to whatever you want. So, you know, if you've got negative habits, you can change them. If you've got, you know, poor eating habits, or, you know, poor COVID habits where you walk past the fridge every time you get up from your computer and your Zoom call, you know, it's really beneficial to actually help you create habits that work for you rather than against you.
Beautiful. And, and tapping into that 80%, as you said, maximizes someone's potential so much more than what they think they already have. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because our brains make us, help us to do this so that we conserve energy because, by nature we're lazy, believe it or not. And that 80% is that us conserving energy. So, it's there for a purpose, but having control of that, is really, really, really beneficial. I can't say, strongly enough how easy it is really once you understand it, but how much impact it has on you.
So would you think every single person would benefit in being able to know how to sharpen their emotional intelligence or tap into that 80% in order to know how to increase their performance?
Oh, look, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you take it for an example. We talk about habits, and there's a whole process around habits, right? But one of the areas, of course, that is also a key driver of us as human beings is the emotions. And and I know, and I've heard it many, many times, particularly from men, but everybody says it. Emotions have no place in the workforce. Well, that's an emotional response, right? So every time you go into the office and there's someone there that triggers you, that's a habit. That's an emotional response. That doesn't serve you. So understanding what's triggering your emotions and being able to then have that awareness to be able to then switch that, and use it to your benefit rather than your detriment, is like research has shown that is the key driver to success. That people with high emotional intelligence are the ones that are most successful. It's more important than IQ. EQ is more important.
That leads me into my next question. What are some key components of having sharp emotional intelligence, in your opinion?
Look, the biggest component to having sharp emotional intelligence is awareness. It starts with you, and there's a whole process around emotions, right? First, you have to understand how those emotions work with you. So you have to know yourself. You have to know your own emotional triggers and your own emotional responses. And then that allows you to understand how you show up in the world and how people see you and how you react to people. And then in doing that, then you're able to make the best, come to the best solutions for both of you, or, come to the best outcomes really, if you can temper that emotional response. Particularly, right now we're talking about COVID and we talk about anxiety and stress and those sorts of things, key drivers to, being unwell. And so if you can recognize that you're stressed, or you can recognize that you're being overwhelmed, or, all of that sort of stuff, and you can control that the outcome to that is far better than not being able to control it and going the other way.
So it's more about being conscious of your emotional state, right?
Yeah, awareness. It starts with awareness, and it starts with you. You can't control other people's emotions, and in fact, you can't control other people, but you can certainly influence better in this way.
Beautiful. So how does one implement new habits in that case?
Well, the first thing you need to do is really just identify what the trigger is for you. What it is that's triggering you, and it can be something as simple as it can be a smell, it can be a time of day, it can be a place, it can be a person. Understanding what the trigger is the start to identifying that habit, and then identifying what you're getting out of it, because every habit we do for a reason, and we get a reward out of it. And we as human beings just love rewards. So if you understand what the reward you're getting out of that habit, and it can be, someone that gets angry, for example, their reward can be that they actually push people away and don't get, that could be a symptom of overwhelm, right? So they get angry and they push someone away, which just means that they're not getting more stuff piled onto them, right? So that's really part of the key, is then identifying your trigger, identifying what it is you get out of it, what the reward is, and then what you can do is, once you know the trigger and you know what you're getting out of it, you can just change the middle bit, how you act, right? That's the key, is changing that middle bit. It's a small change, because we're lazy, as I said before, as humans, and the smaller the change, the better. And once you do that, then everything else changes around you. And the amount of people that are so surprised by the smallest change, how it has the biggest impact, is amazing.
And what are some obstacles that people most commonly face when implementing new habits? Are there any sort of common challenges and obstacles that you've experienced or you've seen that come into play sometimes?
Sure. The biggest challenge is really identifying the real trigger and the real reward. They are the challenges, because sometimes we see, that we feel that what we do is pretty much on the surface. Like, for example, someone that might smoke, smoking might not be that, having a cigarette, or, having a coffee and having a cigarette might not be the actual true trigger. Someone that smokes might smoke because it's a social thing for them. Maybe all their friends smoke, maybe that's the reward they get out of it. So it's really the biggest obstacle to that is really recognizing what the true trigger is and what the real reward is that you get out of it. Once you get that, then you can put the correct action in place that will move you forward.
Okay. And in implementing new habits, how does someone create new habits, say, in a business environment, let's say?
Yeah, so in a business environment, it's you when you're talking about a team, you talk about then a different dynamic of habit, because you're talking about like group habits, and every individual has their own habits, right, that they bring to work with them. So it's really about building a culture that allows those habits to work well, to be most effective. So examples of that might be where people are in the habit of, maybe at lunchtime or at tea time, they might, stand in the lunchroom and all have a little bitch session, right? That might be a habit that they get into, right? But to change that, you might need to then have a look at what's going on there. What's feeding that, right? Is that a social thing? Is that dissatisfaction with their employer? Is that, like, what's going on there? So it's understanding that trigger for the group, and then trying to change that with the team, right? Work with the team to create that habit. Because, of course, the last thing you need is that your employees get into a habit of doing the wrong thing because it serves them to do that. It's easier to do that than actually do the right thing and put up with a negative response, because we don't like negative responses, right? We don't like conflict as humans generally.
So having, say, healthy habits in place in a work environment is definitely imperative for a team culture. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. As well as the health and safety of the mental health, actually, of your staff and teams, is the other side of it as well. You want to not only develop good culture in the workplace, but also encourage healthy eating and taking time out, taking adequate breaks, and dealing with stress in high stress environments and things like that as well. Developing good habits in the workplace for that as well is super important.
So if someone, say, has been operating and working in an office environment, and now they've been restricted in having to go home and create a space at home, working environment, and they've had these habits in place in the office environment, how do they actually transition in implementing those new habits in that home environment, but still creating that working space?
Yeah. So, and this is quite common, obviously, with
Mm,
COVID, right?
mm,
The big thing here is to stick to your routine, right? This is where a lot of people are falling into really bad habits because, of course, when you're working from home, you just get out of bed, right? And you can get on Zoom. And a lot of the time, most people, I've heard, don't put their camera on so they can be in their pajamas all day, right? And the mindset's different. The mindset really is different. It's amazing just by taking attention to detail, by following those routines of having a shower and getting dressed, changes your mindset and how you show up. But when you're talking about these these other habits of, what I find is that a lot of people, when they get up, they go to work, and in that transition from when they leave home to when they get to work, that travel time, there's a mindset switch, right? They're actually thinking about, what am I going to do when I get to work? What things do I need to do? And when they're working from home, they don't do that. So what I do is encourage people to actually get up and go for a walk or go for a run or get out of the house and use that time to go through that same mental process, and then come into, find a place, if you can at all, a room or somewhere where that's your work space, that's your work area. Ideally, a spare room is great, but somewhere where you can actually shut down at the end of the day, because then at the end of the day, you'd need to do the same thing. It's like go through that whole process of shut down like you would at the office, and then go out for another walk, take the dog for a walk, do something, and go through that same mental process that we go through of, okay, we're going home now. What do I need to do when I get home? What's my routine? Do I have to take the kids somewhere? What's going on there? So that's a big key during COVID, is to try and keep your routines as much the same as possible and keep those mental spaces going in there.
And do you think that with maintaining these routines and these habits, that the environment would need to be able to support that? So I've seen many people set up their working space in their living room or on their kitchen bench, or maybe even in the bedroom. So there's really a lot of crossover in terms of work mode to home mode. So would the environment play a big part in that, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think it's key that if they can find an area that they can designate as their workspace, and that will stay their workspace, and they can set it up. Of course, from a business perspective, you have to think about ergonomics as well. It's not, they've got to be sitting correctly if they're going to be working for long hours, in front of a computer or what have you. But it is really key to make sure that you have a spot that you can set up, properly for the workspace, and then be able to shut it down. Because that's the other thing that's happening right now, actually, is because we've been dealing with COVID, like, who knows, we're in October, like it's a long time, right? And a lot of people are suffering from burnout. And it's because when you're at home and you feel like, yeah, great, I love working from home. But you know what? I'm at home, so I feel guilty if I don't work longer. Work's beeping me at all times. So I better answer it because I'm at home. This is work now. So they're actually suffering a lot from burnout because they're not shutting down properly. They're not putting that distinction between, this is work and that's home that they used to when they travel to the office.
Mm-mm. And you mentioned burnout, and does that come also back to having that awareness of what's being triggered to cause that, to make the changes?
It does. But a lot of people, because of COVID, because of the uncertainty of COVID, are not realising that they're in that place. I mean, we haven't been able to travel. A lot of people have been in lockdowns. Some countries have been in lockdowns many, many times. And you just can't go away. So in this time of uncertainty, where your only place that you can feel safe is home, you're not getting any release. And that's where the burnout's coming from. It's like now it's been so long and people are going, you know what, I really need a break. I cannot keep doing this. You know, it's okay when we don't know what's going on and this COVID thing's here and hopefully it'll be gone soon, but it's still here, right? And that's a big thing for you know, that whole burnout feeling that people are getting right now, you know. Yeah.
So do you think the biggest downfall for, say, companies or businesses that have teams that have sent home their employees to work from home haven't really established a solid foundation of habits to transition into the home environment? Do you think that's one of the biggest downfalls in a lot of corporate space, let's say?
Absolutely, because COVID hit and it was pretty much like lockdown. You know, everybody works from home, and business had to learn how to no, for want of a better word, pivot. Right? They had to learn how to pivot, how to do business in an environment that they didn't expect to do business in. So yes, it absolutely is a big challenge. Absolutely was, and it still is now.
Okay. So what are some key resources that you can offer the listeners to implement what we've just spoken about, to set some frameworks for some habits?
Yeah, I think I can give them some, there's a thing called a habit loop, which actually talks about, you know, that finding the trigger, helping you find the trigger, and then looking at the reward, and also, you know, the routine. What's the routine, that bit in the middle that you can change, which is a really good tool to help you, you know, to help you change your behaviours, and work towards what you want to work towards.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Evelyn. How can anyone connect with you if they have any further questions in regards to creating new habits?
Yeah, absolutely. You can get on to me. My email address is evelyn@leadingtrainingsolutions.com. Also, I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect with that company, Leading Training Solutions, on there. I'm more than happy to help anybody out that wants to learn some new habits.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Evelyn. It's been such a pleasure chatting to you.
Great. Thanks, Marie. It's been great. It's been lots of fun.
No worries. My name's Marie Van Viklis from The Conscious CEO. Thank you for listening to the Think Tank podcast. Till next time, bye for now.